When you're shopping for a high-end sports car, there's usually this immediate obsession with the engine.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, you want maximum horsepower, you want the best 0 to 60 times, you pop the hood and just marvel at this sheer machinery of it all.
Right.
But imagine you actually buy that supercar. You sit down in the driver's seat, and you realize the steering wheel is sticky.
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah. And the dashboard menus are entirely in a language you don't speak.
Ugh.
And, like, the radio randomly blares advertisements at maximum volume,
Yeah.
and you just cannot figure out how to turn it off.
So suddenly, all that incredible horsepower underneath the hood doesn't really matter so much because you just can't stand being inside the cabin.
Exactly. And that total disconnect between the incredible objective power of the machinery underneath and the deeply frustrating experience in the cabin is exactly what's happening right now in this massive $2.8 trillion battle between Microsoft and Apple.
It's a fascinating dynamic.
It really is. The hardware has never been better, and the software has, well, never been more frustrating. So our mission for you today in this deep dive is to figure out if the massive leaps we're seeing in Windows hardware have actually dethroned the Mac.
And of course, to explore why the operating system, the cabin of our sports car, basically, has become the ultimate messy battleground.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we look at the financial data from early 2024, Microsoft actually overtook Apple as the world's most valuable company.
Yeah, that market capitalization shift is a vital starting point. I mean, we saw Microsoft hit $2.887 trillion.
Which is just an unfathomable amount of money.
Right, and they edged out Apple, who was at $2.875 trillion. Now, those numbers constantly fluctuate, but the underlying driver for Microsoft's surge was their heavy, aggressive investment in artificial intelligence.
Right.
But to truly understand where we are right now, we really have to look at the physical silicon first, because for years the narrative was just that Apple silicon was completely untouchable.
Oh, absolutely untouchable. When Apple introduced their M-series chips, they basically rewrote the rules for the entire industry.
They really did.
I remember people marveling at how you could edit like 4K video on a MacBook Air without the fan ever even turning on. It just felt like magic.
Yeah, it broke everyone's expectations.
But the teardowns and the benchmarks we're looking at today show a massive shift. I mean, Microsoft is running ads claiming their new Copilot Plus PCs are up to 58% faster than Apple's M3 MacBook Air.
Which is a bold claim.
It's huge.
Yeah.
How are they suddenly pulling that off?
Well, it comes down to a fundamental architectural shift. The teardowns from TD SYNNEX on these new devices, like the 15-inch Surface laptop.
It's a new one, right?
Yeah, the newest one. They show it's powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite processor. And this is an ARM-based chip, just like Apple Silicon, which is a massive, massive departure from the x86 architecture Windows has relied on for decades.
Okay, I hear those terms thrown around constantly, ARM versus x86. Why does switching to ARM suddenly make a Windows laptop so much better?
So think of x86 like a kitchen with one incredibly powerful, massive chef who tries to cook every single part of the meal at once.
Okay.
He gets the job done fast, sure, but he sweats a lot, he burns a ton of energy, and he makes the kitchen blazing hot.
Right, just brute forcing it.
Exactly. That's traditional Intel or AMD architecture. ARM, on the other hand, is like an assembly line of highly specialized prep cooks.
Oh, I see.
Each cook only handles one specific task, but they do it incredibly efficiently. So they use vastly less power and generate almost no heat.
Wow. So by moving to ARM, Microsoft is finally matching Apple's efficiency. But the big selling point isn't just the processor, right? Like, the spec sheets keep hyping up something called an NPU, with this one featuring 45 TOPS. What actually is that?
Right, so NPU stands for Neural Processing Unit. If the main processor is the general brain of the computer, the NPU is a dedicated lobe purely built for artificial intelligence tasks. Historically, if you wanted your computer to, say, blur your background on a video call or run a local AI model, it forced the main processor or the graphics card to do the heavy lifting.
Which just drained your battery instantly.
Because you were asking the general chef to suddenly do highly complex calculus while also making soup.
Right.
Precisely. The NPU handles that specific AI math natively. And TOPS, well, that stands for tera operations per second.
Okay, tera meaning trillion.
Yes. So this Qualcomm chip can perform 45 trillion AI operations every single second, completely locally, without sending any data to the cloud.
45 trillion operations. That is just, it's difficult to even conceptualize that kind of speed.
It's staggering.
But the real-world translation of that efficiency is what really caught my eye. The battery tests on this new Surface laptop are clocking in at over 21 hours of local video playback on a single charge.
Yeah, that heavily beats the previous Surface Laptop 5, and more importantly, it actually outlasts the 15-inch M3 MacBook Air.
Wait, really? It beats the Mac.
It does, and it's doing all of this while staying remarkably cool. If we look at the thermal imaging from those hardware teardowns under heavy load, the Surface peaked at about 50.3 degrees Celsius.
Which isn't bad at all.
Not at all. And the hottest part was localized strictly at the hinge, totally away from where your hands actually rest.
Right, compare that to the Intel Core Ultra competitors tested in the same batch. Like the MSI laptop hit over 56 degrees Celsius, right dead center in the middle of the keyboard.
Exactly, right where you're typing.
So you have a Windows machine that is faster, it lasts longer, runs cooler, and actually costs less. I mean, the teardown highlighted a $1,699 price point compared to the Mac's $1,899.
Yeah, a $200 difference. And what's fascinating here is how the broader ecosystem is aligning to make this happen. Qualcomm is dominating the efficient ARM processing, but we also have to look at the massive graphics and AI processing driving the larger Windows ecosystem.
Right.
Which is basically being spearheaded by Nvidia right now.
Oh, absolutely. The financial analysis we reviewed on Nvidia is just staggering.
Right.
I mean, they are projecting $216 billion in 2026 revenue.
Which is up over 65% year over year.
It's insane. And we're seeing NVIDIA's CEO actively toasting supply chain partners like TSMC and Foxconn. It seems like everyone is just getting rich off this Windows hardware renaissance.
They really are, but we need to distinguish who is doing what in that chain. You know, NVIDIA is what we call a fabless company.
Meaning they don't fabricate the chips.
Right. They design the blueprints for these incredible AI chips, but they don't actually build them. That's where TSMC comes in.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Exactly. They own the multi-billion-dollar laser fabrication plants that actually etch those microscopic blueprints onto physical silicon.
Wow.
Then Foxconn takes those silicon chips and physically solders them onto the motherboards to build the final laptops. So when NVIDIA's CEO is toasting them, he is celebrating the physical supply chain that is making this massive Windows AI push possible.
It honestly feels like they have finally figured out how to drop a supercar engine into a reliable family sedan. It completely changes what you expect from a Windows machine.
It really does.
But this brings me back to our opening thought, because I have to pose a critical question to you. Does having all this incredible hardware power underneath the hood actually matter if the steering wheel is broken?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, hardware is actually no longer the bottleneck in the tech industry.
Right.
For the first time in a long time, the physical limits of the processors aren't holding us back. The battle has entirely shifted to how efficiently the user can interact with that hardware.
Which leads us directly to the software experience.
Exactly.
And unfortunately for Microsoft, their software right now is causing major friction.
Oh, yeah.
The machines are fantastic, but the operating system running them is going through this massive identity crisis. I mean, one of the critiques we looked at bluntly pointed out that Microsoft might actually take down Apple only if the Windows UI wasn't a, quote, flaming pile of garbage.
I mean, it is a harsh assessment, but it reflects a growing, very vocal user sentiment right now. We see this explored deeply in an op-ed from Backdash, which heavily criticizes Windows 11.
Yeah.
The author refers to it as a slop-ridden mess.
They really did not hold back.
No, they didn't.
The article cites forced updates that interrupt workflows, obtrusive product placements, and what they call Copilot-induced hallucinogenic bugs.
Right.
Basically, you pay almost $1,700 for a premium laptop, and the operating system serves you advertisements right in your start menu.
It's incredibly frustrating for users.
But the most visceral complaint to me was about basic functionality breaking down. Users are putting their laptops in their bags, assuming they're asleep, only to pull them out hours later to find a completely dead, blazing hot machine.
Yeah, the dreaded hot bag syndrome.
Why on earth does that happen on a machine this advanced?
Well, this is a notorious issue rooted in a feature called Modern Standby, or S0 Low Power Idle. Historically, when you closed your laptop, it went to sleep. It saved its state to memory and essentially shut down. But Microsoft wanted Windows laptops to behave more like smartphones.
Ah, I see.
Right, so waking up in the background to fetch emails, sync calendars, and download updates while the lid is closed.
So it's treating my laptop like a giant phone in my backpack.
Exactly. But unlike a phone, which is perfectly optimized for that, a Windows environment has thousands of heavy background processes.
Right, so full desktop OS.
Exactly. So the laptop decides to wake up, it connects to Wi-Fi to run a massive update, the processor spins up, generating heat, but because the laptop is zipped inside a backpack, the fans are suffocating.
Oh, wow.
It enters thermal runaway and just drains the battery to zero. It
Huh.
is a fundamental failure of trust between the user and the machine.
Yeah.
The role of a modern operating system is to stay out of the user's way. Instead, Windows 11 is actively fighting the user for control.
But Microsoft knows this is a problem. I mean, we read a report from Windows Latest revealing that Microsoft is finally trying to redesign some of these legacy user interface elements.
True.
They're even updating the incredibly rare installing Windows 11 screen. But the core OS is still full of dialog boxes from the Windows 3.1 era, especially when you dig into the control panel. Like, why can't a multi-trillion-dollar company just hit delete on menus from 1992?
Well, because of something called architectural debt, Microsoft is migrating settings into the modern interface incredibly slowly because they're absolutely terrified of breaking old network and printer drivers.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I actually want to push back a little on the sheer anger in that Backdash article.
Oh.
Because Microsoft's caution actually makes a lot of sense when you think about their user base. It's like trying to completely renovate a massive skyscraper while thousands of people are still working inside.
That's a good way to put it.
If they rip out the old control panel too fast, the roof caves in for enterprise users. They have decades of corporate clients like hospitals running critical software, banks using archaic security protocols, and they're all relying on those specific ancient legacy drivers to run their operations.
Right, and that architectural debt is the price of their monopoly. Apple, on the other hand, has the luxury of burning the boats.
Yeah, they do.
Every few years, Apple simply abandons old software architectures, they discontinue support for old apps, and they force their users to adapt to the new standard.
Right.
Microsoft cannot do that without losing their enterprise dominance. So they're stuck trying to apply a modern, glossy coat of paint over a foundation that was poured 30 years
Right.
ago.
So if Microsoft is anchored down by 30-year-old menus and modern AI bloatware, you listening to this might assume that Apple is just easily winning the software design race.
You think so?
Right. They have always been the kings of clean, intuitive interfaces. But our sources reveal that Apple has actually stumbled into its own massive design controversy.
Indeed, it seems both companies are struggling with their software identity right now, just in entirely different ways.
Yeah.
The documentation we reviewed on Apple's latest software shows that in June 2025, they introduced a brand new design language called Liquid Glass.
Right.
This was rolled out across iOS 26, macOS Tahoe, and their other operating systems, and it marked a total departure from the flat, minimalist design they championed for over a decade.
Liquid glass.
Yeah.
It sounds fancy. What exactly is it doing functionally?
Well, it utilizes a dynamic digital material that literally refracts and reflects the background behind it in real time.
Wow.
It is designed to mimic the physics of real glass. It even reacts to the physical gyroscope of the device, so it's shifting and shimmering like drops of liquid when you tilt your phone or laptop.
Okay, so wait. Real-time refraction and material physics rendering on a basic user interface layer.
Yep.
Is Apple's obsession with making their digital menus look like literal sloshing glass, just a massive flex of their M-series processing power, rather than something that actually helps you get your work done?
This raises an important question about the purpose of design, because the reception to liquid glass was incredibly hostile from a usability standpoint.
I can imagine.
While some praised it as visually sophisticated, many critics and interface designers found it profoundly distracting.
Right, because it's moving.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on the content of your email or your document, your eye is constantly drawn to the shimmering, moving interface itself. It causes cognitive overload.
And it wasn't just an aesthetic preference, right?
Yeah.
It actively degraded usability.
Oh, severely.
The sources noted that legibility became a massive issue. Because the menus were refractive and transparent, the text sitting on top of them became incredibly hard to read.
Especially if you were using your device outside in direct sunlight.
Right. It actually got so bad that Apple had to roll out panic updates in their Beta 4 release just to add accessibility toggles so users could manually turn the transparency down.
It's a fascinating irony. On one side of the battlefield, you have Microsoft struggling to modernize a clunky legacy interface that works but looks entirely disjointed.
Right, the other side, you have Apple, who over-engineered their interface to be so computationally beautiful that it actually destroyed basic legibility.
It is form over function to the absolute extreme. Like, Apple used their incredible hardware advantage to build a distracting visual flex, while Microsoft used their hardware advantage to build incredibly powerful machines that their own software can't properly put to sleep in a backpack.
Exactly. The hardware across the board is spectacular right now, but the software user experience is just suffering under the weight of these vastly different corporate philosophies.
So what does this all mean? Let's distill this journey down for you. We are looking at a computing landscape where Microsoft has finally matched, and in some metrics beaten, Apple on hardware and power efficiency.
Right.
They've done this by moving to ARM architecture with Qualcomm and integrating Nvidia's massive AI processing power. But that beautiful hardware is currently suffocating under Windows 11's legacy bloat, poorly implemented sleep states, and intrusive AI ads. And conversely, Apple is no longer sitting comfortably with a monopoly on highly efficient, cool-running laptops.
Yeah.
Furthermore, they are alienating their historically loyal user base with Liquid Glass, a software interface that prioritizes computational flexing over fundamental usability.
It really asks you to consider what matters most to you when you're choosing a device today. Like, are you prioritizing raw power, 21-hour battery life, and local AI capabilities, even if it means wrestling with a messy, ad-filled operating system?
Or do you prioritize a traditionally closed, beautiful ecosystem, even if the new interface feels like it's getting in the way of your actual productivity?
It is no longer a simple choice between the fast one and the pretty one.
No, it's not. Both platforms have profound, undeniable contradictions right now.
They really do. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought straight from that fiery backdash article we discussed earlier, because the author points out a massive ripple effect in the industry that we haven't touched on yet.
This is a great point.
They note that everyday users, and remarkably, even hardcore gamers, are getting so thoroughly fed up with both Windows and macOS that they are actively fleeing to Linux.
That is a highly significant paradigm shift. Because historically, Linux was viewed as an operating system exclusively for developers, server administrators, and tech enthusiasts.
Yeah, total power users.
Right. It required command line knowledge just to install a web browser. It was certainly not for the average consumer.
Exactly. But the source points out that modern Linux distributions have finally bridged that gap. The installers are now as easy to use as setting up a new iPhone.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. Linux offers a completely free, open-source ecosystem that doesn't push AI advertisements onto your desktop, it doesn't force updates while your laptop is in your bag, and it doesn't force you to stare through sloshing, glassy menus to read a spreadsheet.
And you mentioned gamers. That has historically been the impenetrable moat for Windows.
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to play PC games, you had to use Windows.
Right. But the article highlights that translation layers have gotten so good that the moat is just drying up.
For context, a translation layer is a piece of software like Proton or Wine that acts as a real-time interpreter.
Okay.
Most modern games are written in a Microsoft programming language called DirectX. Historically, Linux couldn't understand that language.
Right.
But now, these translation layers instantly intercept the DirectX commands and translate them into a language Linux understands, like Vulkan, in milliseconds.
So the user doesn't have to code anything. They just click play on Steam, and the game runs perfectly on Linux.
Exactly.
It suggests a massive, growing consumer fatigue with corporate operating systems dictating the user experience. I mean, if you buy that supercar we talked about and you absolutely hate the sticky steering wheel and the blaring radio advertisements, maybe you don't buy a different brand of corporate supercar.
Right.
Maybe you just rip out the dashboard and build your own. Could the ultimate winner of the trillion-dollar Microsoft versus Apple hardware war actually be the open source penguin?
It's definitely a compelling thought.
It is definitely something to mull over the next time your Windows laptop wakes up and tries to cook itself in your backpack. Or your Mac's menus become invisible in the sun. Do you really need a corporate OS at all? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.